Hello, everyone. Welcome to the ARP-ATP online session, including a discussion of plagiarism and academic integrity, and some ways to survive university the right way. My name is Dr. Alexis McQuigg, and I'm going to show you what academic integrity is. We're going to talk about how to avoid academic integrity, and we're going to talk about various forms of misconduct in the university. The first thing that you've got to remember when you enroll in university or when you join a university class is that universities are intellectual communities. And there are specific ways that we have to behave when we join an intellectual community. The first thing that we expect is that we'll all involve ourselves as heartily as we can in studying and learning. The second thing that goes along with that is while we're doing that, we're going to make sure that we use the information and the work of other people as fairly as we possibly can. So we're going to talk about what academic integrity means, what academic misconduct means, what non-academic misconduct is, and we're going to make sure that we're all on the same page when it comes to what those things are. Academic integrity involves three basic components that you need to be aware of. The first is that you'll behave truthfully and honestly in your classes. The second is that you'll use the work of other people as fairly as you can. And the third is pretty broad. It involves acting in accordance with the university's policies. And you can find university policy in your copy of the undergraduate handbook or in the undergraduate handbook online. So, when we start thinking about what academic misconduct is, we have a number of things that can fall under the category of academic misconduct. And we're going to talk about two different things that we're often faced with in university. The first one is acts of academic misconduct that happen by accident. These happen all the time. We see them in every kind of class you could possibly take. Academic misconduct that happens by accident happens when students forget to cite their sources. It happens when students forget to put in their bibliography. It happens when students forget to begin a quotation with quotation marks and end that quotation with quotation marks. All of these things are things that students often do unintentionally, but they do qualify as acts of academic misconduct. The problem is, or the issue is here, is that when you submit a paper for any of your classes or a lab report or anything that you have to do, you're saying, this is my work. I've done this work. And because it's your work, we're all responsible for the accidents and mistakes that happen in our own work. So you need to be aware of what you need to do to avoid academic misconduct so that you don't have those accidents. The second way academic misconduct is committed is on purpose. And the problem with people who commit academic misconduct on purpose is that we're defeating the purpose of trying to become knowledgeable in your field. If you're just using the work of other people, you're not going to learn much about what the things that you're supposed to know are. So let's talk about what can happen if you get caught. Now, the university is fairly strict about academic misconduct and what academic misconduct means. So if your professor or your ATP, ARP advisor, or one of your TAs or one of your lab assistants finds that you've committed an academic offense, there's a number of procedures that they'll go through. The first thing they'll do is submit all your assignments and a written report to the dean of their faculty or the head of their department. When that happens, the dean of the faculty or the head of the department will schedule a meeting with your professor or TA or lab instructor, and then we'll schedule a meeting with you. As a result of that meeting, there could be penalties that include grade penalties. So you may lose 20% off the assignment that you've submitted. You may lose 20% off the course that you've submitted the assignment to. It depends on the number of times you've committed plagiarism and the severity of the plagiarism. So you may also fail the class, right? These are punishments the university is allowed to enact. The worst one would be being forced to withdraw from the university completely. If you've plagiarized multiple times, you'll be forced to withdraw from the university, and you'll get what's called an XF on your transcript. An XF signals to anyone who looks at your transcript that you've been required to withdraw because of plagiarism. So you're probably asking, why is this such a big deal? Who cares? Well, there's lots of reasons, right? The first reason is that you're here to learn things, and your professors are here to teach you things. And by teaching you those things, your professors are hoping that you will become experts in your field. So when your professor gives you an assignment, right, your professor is asking you to do 3 things in that assignment. And if you use the words of other people, you're not doing those 3 things. You're showing that somebody else can do those things. Right? The first is to show that you've understand the material that you've been taught and that you've read on your own. The second is that you can refer to sources to support ideas that you have developed. And the third is to show how your work is different from the work of the other students in your class and from work of experts in your field. In order to do things, in order to do these things, you have to do the assignments yourself. I think that's fairly explanatory. So those are the things your professors are expecting you to see or expecting you to demonstrate, and those are the things your professors are expecting to see in your work. So let's talk a little bit about academic misconduct at the University of Regina. Every university has its own academic misconduct policies, but I guarantee you every university does have a policy on how to deal with issues of academic misconduct. And again, this information is found and can be found by you in the undergraduate calendar. So, at the University of Regina, students are expected to conduct themselves responsibly and with propriety, both in their studies and in their general behavior. So when it comes to your academic work, right, you want to avoid things like cheating and things like plagiarism. Acts of academic misconduct that involve cheating can be things like using books or notes or phones or computers in exams without the permission of your professor. They can also be copying the answers of another student in an exam. They can involve communicating with other students in an exam, so talking when you're not supposed to, asking another student or somebody else to take the exam for you, whether you ask them or pay them, or telling other students what's on the exam if for some reason you've written it early. When it comes to plagiarism, right, things are a little bit different, right? Plagiarism is when one person submits or presents the work of another person as his or her own, whether from intent to deceive, lack of understanding, or carelessness. So remember here, right? Lack of understanding and carelessness are no excuses for not knowing when you have plagiarized and for avoiding plagiarism. If you're an ARP ATP student, you've taken this class. If you are an ARP student, or ATP student, you've also taken Arts 9-9. So, plagiarism involves not acknowledging when you are using the work of someone else, thus presenting it as your own original work, handing in assignments for one class that have previously been graded in another class, and this includes high school, failing or forgetting to cite the information you've obtained through your research, or failing to include a bibliography or a list of works cited in your assignments. But wait, right, there's more. We don't just have academic misconduct at the University of Regina. We have acts of non-academic misconduct that you need to be aware of. As a student at the U of R, you're bound by a code of behavior that's, again, laid out for you in the undergraduate calendar. If you violate that code, you'll commit an act of non-academic misconduct, which is dealt with in a very different way, but a no less serious way than our acts of academic misconduct. So according to the U of R undergraduate calendar, considerations for others and respect for each person is a principal way of life within the university community. So an act of non-academic misconduct involves violating these tenets of respect for each person, respect for university property, and respect for the law that the university wants its students to abide by. Non-academic misconduct offenses, most of them are laid out for you in the undergraduate calendar, but I'll talk about the major ones. Anything that involves violating the published rules of the university. So, if, for instance, the University of Regina's undergraduate calendar is very specific about the consumption of illegal drugs. Things like theft, vandalism, damaging university property would all be considered acts of non-academic misconduct. Disruption of instructional activities, so starting a riot, assault or threatened assault, or falsifications of university records, things like lying on your application or breaking into the system and changing your grades, and all those kinds of things. So how might we avoid academic misconduct. Non-academic misconduct, I think, is fairly simple. You just don't do those things. Academic misconduct is different. You want to take good notes, and you want to make sure that you're making it very clear when you're using your work and the work of other people. You also want to develop a system for writing and stick to that system. Make sure that you have an outline. Write down the sources of your information immediately after you get that information. Don't try to go back and get it a bit later. All these things are habits that you can get into that will help you avoid plagiarism. What to do next, right? Never cut and paste anything from the internet into your paper. Always make an outline, make it clear where your information is coming from, where your quotations are going to go. Use your own language, right? You should be making sure that you're writing things in your own words all the time and that you're not relying too much on the sources that other people have provided to you. So what's next? Well, we've made it through the academic integrity and plagiarism video. Now we've got a number of activities planned for you. You'll notice online under this video there is an academic integrity quiz and a plagiarism quiz. So you're going to be required to take those quizzes as part of today's activities. You have to get a mark of 10 out of 13 on the first one and 8 out of 10 on the second one to be able to pass.